The follow-up to that report, I had a chat with Oluwaseyi Adeyemo. He's a public affairs analyst who owns his own magazine that tells news about Africa. He commends Nigeria and her people for containing the virus, but urges regional organizations to lead the campaign of eradicating the disease.
Everyone is aware that the response have not been fantastic. That's why there have been all sorts of reports everywhere. As we speak today, the last time record was taken, about 4,555 people have died, and we have like 9,200 and something who are still, affected. So that's why I believe that for whatever it's worth, I think the international world, including ECOWAS, should have reacted more swiftly to what is happening right now. That's why we're still at where we are.
What do you think is responsible, for the high number of mortality rates concerning Ebola in these countries? Could we attribute it to poverty or a lack of information?
Poverty is a very, very strong point. Lack of awareness is also very, very key, because the truth of the matter is if they had responded enough, in other words, if they have the kind of health response that a average country ought to have, maybe they probably would have had some of this thing contained. A good example is Nigeria. I think we've done well, and that's reported widely because we've sort of, stood up to face this problem. But I guess because of traditional beliefs and the fact that they have not probably spend enough in the area of health care, that's why they still have it there. So I guess poverty is a very, very strong point to be considered, yeah.
And yet millions of dollars have been contributed towards fighting the Ebola virus disease, about $400 million, and yet Médecins Sans Frontières says that this is not enough. Yeah. How do you really see this going? Because Ebola looks to be like the next humanitarian crisis. And how do you deal with a humanitarian crisis like this?
Obviously, it is, because, the truth of the matter is beyond this country that is mentioned in West Africa, we now have cases where this is, occurring in the US, Spain, Germany, the UK is also on the alert and all that. So, yes, it is a situation where it's become a world crisis, and obviously, it could be described as becoming an humanitarian crisis, yeah. Well, the best way to attack is to ensure that you take the attack to the house of the enemy. Now, what do I mean by that? As it is right now, if the problem is more here, I think it's only sensible for them that have the superpower, that have the strength, that have the money, that have all the well without, to come and ensure that that is done. And that's why, as a person, I've commended the response of President Obama by sending some soldiers here. He's been criticized back home because some people see the fact that it's not our problem, as it were. But look, if all of us have continued to advocate for a global village, and the world obviously have become a global village, whatever problem that causes anywhere in the world affects every one of us. So for me, it's something that everybody needs to stand up to right now.
Some countries have been toying with the idea of banning flights from these three West African countries. First of all, how effective is that, and do they have the right to do so?
It's a legitimate response. It's something that people...
You say it's legitimate?
I'll explain what I mean by that. Everybody has a right to protect its territorial area. And what they've done is to say, look, we don't want this problem. But I need to explain to them. I guess they need to understand the fact that, like I said earlier, because it is a global village, whether you stop flights or not, people will have to get around. People will have to do business with themselves. Things must be shared all over the world. So trying to stop flight is obviously not the way. Though it is legitimate, it's something you do sometimes when you're in such a situation, but it is not the way out, because whether we like it or not, we will continue to deal with ourselves as a people. That thing that we all craved for and worked for and invested into, globalization, it's come upon us because right now, without a doubt, the world has become a global village. So our problem has become something that we all must share together.
Those who have compared the Ebola virus disease with SARS back in the early 2000s, or when countries like China and Japan and some parts of Europe were under the fear of the fact that, and this one was even worse because it was an airborne disease. People have compared reactions by other countries to these sorts of things. SARS, of course, right now is no longer an issue in these countries. Yet the Ebola virus disease, it's nearing a year since Africa has been
since
dealing.
December, yeah.
Yes, since Africa has been dealing with the Ebola virus disease. You think because it did not originate somewhere in the West is why it's taken this long to eventually have the awareness and the focus that it needs?
I don't want to use the word legitimate so that you don't query me again. But the truth of the matter is, when the proverb says that when something burns you and burns somebody else, what you do is you will take away the burnt from yourself first. And I guess they say that all the time when we're airborne, that if there's a crisis, you need to save yourself first before you save the minor that you're traveling with. So it didn't start with them. Now, if it started with them like SARS, they will have reacted like they reacted. Now that it started with us, it is expected that we take the fight to a particular level and they'll come in and support. I agree that because it is a global problem, they need to support us. But the truth is, the majority of the responsibility is still on us. We are going to do the bulk of the work. And that's why Nigeria have succeeded, because right back home, everybody stood up, federal government, state government. And I must celebrate what happened in Nigeria, because for the first time, we've done something really, really right coming from everywhere.
Now, in all of this, we really haven't heard the voices of ECOWAS, neither have we heard, on a much larger scale, the African Union. Is this, a characteristic of many African countries, deflecting attention to what really is their own problem? Because this is happening within our own continent. It's not happening elsewhere.
Unfortunately, I will have to be blunt in this regard. I guess ECOWAS have failed. And in a lot of ways, they've not done enough, even in the area of trade, which is their primary responsibility. It is expected that at this time, they are the ones that are meant to be in the forefront of everything. It is expected that by now, there will be definite and clear response from the ECOWAS Secretariat. But unfortunately, yes, we've heard of the fact that they are looking at having a meeting. I guess the president of Ghana, there's a proposal on the table. It is sad that something that started in December, as of today, we're still going around thinking of what to do. By now, we should have, like Nigeria, point to definite steps that would have or should have been taken by the ECOWAS Secretariat. Because you see, you cannot separate business from life. It is those who are alive that can do business. And so if you are promoting trade, cross-border trade, then you should be involved in the center of health, security in the sub-region as well. So the truth be told, they have not done well at all in this regard.
While the U.S. coalition continues its airstrikes in Syria, the UN continues to cater to those fleeing the fighting. Please join us again.